Hey guys, it's Rachel. It's Thankful Thursday, and I'm outside again because it's just so beautiful out here, and it's so warm as well. So it kind of is like a nice place to be, and I have my boys with me when I'm out here as well. This week, we've been looking at anorexia nervosa, and what my intention was, and I think I mentioned some of this last week, was to really not focus on the criteria that is for a diagnosis of anorexia, to do with like degree of weight loss or what have you, but to actually look at the features of it, and so the understanding is that it doesn't matter what size you are or whatever, that if you're engaging in behaviors, you're engaging in anorexic behaviors. Today I'm going to try and articulate, that's the hope anyway, what the course of anorexia, so sort of where it kind of can start and where it can kind of lead to. And of course, that course is going to be different for everybody, and it's also going to depend on how long you've engaged in the behaviours and how long you've suffered with the disease. It's going to be different, and for me, I do connect to some of what I'm going to say now, and other parts I don't really. So first of all, I'm going to look at that switch from kind of where you begin to develop the eating disorder, and quite often, because there is a degree of sort of restriction and weight loss, it can give a kind of manic high, and that relates to that kind of restlessness and that kind of insomnia. And certainly for me, that kicked in pretty quickly, to be honest. I didn't lose weight because I was on a diet or because of anything like that. I actually was out of a very difficult relationship and kind of very sort of depressed, I guess. Didn't eat, didn't really do very much of anything, and that actual, like we mentioned last week, that actual starvation itself created the majority of the issues that I had. So you've got that initial switch and that kind of high, and you kind of feel, I'm in control, I'm strong, I'm sort of invincible, and I can, I've lost weight, people are commenting on that, it's something that you can feel good about, it's something that you can focus on, it's something that's yours. It's about you, to an extent, gaining mastery over your own body. And then what starts to happen, and as the restriction kicks in and stuff, you will find that there's a vast range of behaviours that begin. One of them is overexercise, with that kind of restlessness and that kind of panic and anxiety, oh my god, I've eaten this, I need to burn it off, and that's sometimes when purging can kick in as well. And that is what happened for me. I began to purge because people were kind of saying you need to eat, and even after a couple of months, just because I hadn't been eating, the disease had kind of got in, I was purging because I was terrified. I was absolutely terrified of food, terrified of my body and what my body could do. And so those behaviours that feel safe to you are the likes of overexercise, are the likes of purging, very ritualistic behaviours, not eating in front of people, eating in a certain way, counting numbers, weighing food, and all of that. And then there's the weighing and the checking, there's the trying on clothes, seeing, this fear that you've just expanded in an hour, in half an hour, in a day. And so you're like on the scale, God, like millions of times a day. It's this like terrified, it's just this constant anxiety about losing control of your body, I guess. And as I say, these are kind of my understandings of it and what I experienced, and it's not always going to be the same, but it's this absolute panic and this fear, and just wanting to be able to feel safe, and feeling safe comes from all of these behaviours. So if somebody is not stopping them, because people can stop you, but it is preventing that there's even more fear and the behaviours become in some ways even more severe. And I think that's the problem with treating eating disorders, is that when people try to help you, that you actually engage in other behaviours to deal with it. Like I just said, you know, there's one thing restricting, and then there's the pressure from my family to eat. I'd eat because I felt like I had to please them, and I didn't want to let them down, and I didn't want them to be upset, you know, and that's when I sort of started purging. So it tends to like spiral really, really quickly. What of course then begins to happen is the anorexic voice, and people will literally say they feel like they have a good guy and a good guy and a bad guy, and it feels as though there is a noise in your head that is demanding that you do this, that you get up, that you're lazy, that you need to go running, that you need to restrict, that you shouldn't be doing this. And it's like you're never alone, because there's constantly somebody with you, just like in your head, like pushing you. And it's like, even, you know, if you're exercising, you know, it's forcing you to push yourself further. It's never good enough. No matter what you do, nothing is ever good enough. No amount of restriction, no amount of running, no amount of anything is ever good enough. And that, when you recover, you still have that noise in your head. And I think it's Moya Hornbecker, isn't it, when she's like, you know, you need to tell the bitch in your head to shut up. You know, you've got a life to live. You're trying to eat your cereal, trying to get well, and you don't need her. And there's a poem by Sylvia Plath in Plaster, and I always think that that's quite an interesting one, really, because she talks about this kind of other self, and you know, and at the end, it's, you know, it's quite a tragic poem in many ways, but at the end, you know, she talks about living without her, without this other self, this person that is disappearing and is pale and sallow and has no personality anymore, that, you know, you can be who you are. There's also within the course of anorexia, denial, of course, you know, it's like a massive one, and you see it in alcoholism and all the rest of it. You know, I'm fine, you know, fine, I'm fine, leave me alone, I'm fine, I don't need your help, there's nothing wrong with me. And you know, it's not about you even just lying to the people close to you, you're lying to yourself, and that becomes, that denial is, for me, I think it is predominantly what keeps people sick, is that they cannot bear to face the fact that this is actually bigger than it is, and so they deny it, and they continue to engage in behaviours, and they pretty much bury their head in the sand, they numb themselves out so they don't have to deal with it. And the later stages are probably the impacts it kind of has on your family, on your friends, and that happened to me quite quickly, really, isolating people, you know, not wanting to go out for dinner, not socialising because it involved food, and just kind of becoming a bit of a recluse, really, because everything seemed to involve food. And I was then so wrapped up in the disorder that, you know, I thought I was bigger and better than people because I could restrict, because, you know, I was staying at home and exercising while they were out, you know, eating and drinking and stuff. And obviously it has a massive impact on your friendships and relationships. It's pretty much, you know, very, very difficult to be in a relationship with somebody who's actively anorexic. And finally, I wanted to just talk about this idea of control, and what happens is that you just stunt your physical growth, of course, because you're not allowing your body to grow and change, but also your emotional, because you're not dealing with anything, so you don't actually emotionally mature in any of that time. So even if you're 10 when you develop it, by the time, you know, if you're like 40 and still ill, you're not going to have developed emotionally in any way. You are going to behave like that 10-year-old because you've not been able to develop. I'm going to leave it there now, guys, because I'm pretty much out of time, and I hope that's just kind of given people an understanding of that process, and I think that, you know, they're all the things you then need to look at when you're engaging in recovery. You need to look at how you deal with all of those factors. Alright guys, thanks, bye.